Namaste. My name is Saurabh Nanda, and today on Such Conversations Matter, I would like to invite a very close friend. We did our computer science engineering together, and we used to have these amazing, crazy conversations about technology and how to use technology to create solutions for both India and the world during our college days. He's one of those people who would like to explain things very simply, very plainly. He loves making analogies, and I think that is needed for his job because he's a technology architect at one of the biggest IT companies in India called Sapient. And before this, he's worked with bigger IT companies like Accenture and so on and so forth. So please help me invite Mr. Anurag Bhandari to today's episode. Hi, Anurag. How are you?
Hi Saurabh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well as well. Anurag, these are
It's
extraordinary
always
times.
nice.
I just wanted to know how has the lockdown been treating you? What are you doing? What have you done in the lockdown? How do you spend your time?
That actually is a trick question. So the lockdown isn't treating me pretty much. So it's not the lockdown that is managing me completely. So my life is now totally changed. As Indians, we do not do all our work ourselves, right? So we all are guilty for that. So now that we have to tidy the house, we have to wash the utensils, a lot of time is spent doing all those chores, right? It's been a good learning experience for sure, being dependent on just yourself, being able to do all the things that you were never able to do before. That's a good thing, but at the same time, time consuming, especially when you have to be up at a certain point to open your office, to join your office, and start working or attend meetings. That may become a bottleneck at times, but at least the time that you save from commuting pretty much goes to all those household chores. So that's the balanced equation for you. So that has been my life so far. My wife and I are, do divide up the chores daily and split it up. So it's been good so far.
But
Um,
during the lockdown, what I've talked to, all the conversation I had with a lot of my friends who are working in the IT industry, like you, they said their work actually increased manifold. They became more busy than usual, working from home. The work level and the work quantity has increased a lot. Is that true in your case as well?
that is very true. And there's a logical explanation behind it, which may seem a little contradictory at first, but this is how it is. There's an expectation from the leadership that now, since you are saving your time, precious time in commuting, earlier you were spending like 1 hour, 1.5 hour in commuting every day. Now you are home all the time, doing whatever you want at whatever time you want, sleeping at odd times, eating at odd times. So you are very comfortable in your homes, right? So take this as an opportunity to be more productive. So we'll flood you with more work. For example, if we used to work 9 hour days every day, now the expectation is at least 10 to 12 hours. And this is a consistent theme that I've seen across all IT firms, across all my friends that I know. And it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. All day long, we spend in useless meetings because apparently there is more time for meetings now, right? So that's been that situation. A little contradictory, but yeah.
Okay. So I was actually under the impression that there was a lot of work coming from the clients and something like of that manner. But yeah,
Not at
this
all.
makes
Not
sense.
at all. Yeah, as you mentioned previously, the clients are clamoring for all their money,
Hmm.
right? They are like super cautious in spending these every single penny. It's just the IT companies that are scrambling for more work. Probably because they are afraid of getting fired at any point, right? That could be one of the reasons. Or the other reason I already talked about, saving time from one activity and spending in the other. And yeah, some people are just more workaholics than the others, and it's just a top-down approach. Right? It just boils down to the bottommost people. we have to suffer because of them.
Okay, strong words there. All right. So let's begin the interview officially. So Anurag, you are a tech architect. Can you please tell us what does a tech architect do? It sounds such a big designation.
Wow, I never knew that. So a tech architect, interesting, interestingly, does something very similar to an architect that designs a building. So that's the architect we all know and hear about, right? So there's an architect who designed this XYZ building, or there's an architect who designed my home, right? So a tech architect is, in a sense, very similar to that person, wherein the only difference is that rather than creating houses or buildings, we are creating software. And as simple as it may sound, creating software is, if not more, at least equally as complicated as creating designs for buildings. So when you are, for example, designing a mega structure like a skyscraper or a mall, that sort of a thing, you have to think about all the moving parts in that building. Not just that, so the superficial structure is just the one aspect, right? So how it will stand in the wind conditions, in the soil conditions, all those things. So the decisions that are made are more like civil architectural, or civil engineering decisions. An architect comes into force when there's a need to take that design one level further. For example, how will it operate from the inside? What is useful or what is not useful in that building? How to ensure that there will be adequate amount of cooling, there will be adequate amount of comfort space, or the vent system, the exhaust, the lighting. Sorry, I always confuse these words. The lighting and stuff like that, right? So an architect has to ensure that all those things are taken care, and not only that, that person has to ensure that the building has its own unique persona. And that's what all these companies want from you. If a real estate developer is investing in a big mall project or in a big skyscraper, the natural inclination is that it should have a persona that is very different from the other buildings. Software is no different. In software, we cater to different clients, different products, different users. Everyone has their own requirements or their own way of using that software. So, for example, one person may use a social media application in a very addictive fashion, but the other person may not be that much addictive to that platform. And then the tech architect or the product designers would have to think how to pull that person into that platform. Similarly, there may be people out there who may not be able to use the experiences or experience the app in a way that mostly people do. So, for example, people with disabilities, people who cannot see, people who cannot hear. So those are the people for which the application should behave similarly, but the interfaces or the experiences will change, right? So, for example, Facebook will provide you an option to speak the content, or whenever there are some images, they will ensure that the assistive technologies that these people use, they're able to read the content that come out of those visual images. So, I'm going to take a couple of technical words here. So, in HTML, images have an alternative text. So it is ensured that the alternative text is always there. So that those people who form at least 10% of our community are not deprived of those same comforts or technologies that we all, take for granted. So in a similar way, a software architect usually comes into picture once the features and functionalities of a software are finalized. So that person will aid in high and low level planning and estimation. So by planning, I mean that, what software components to make, how those components will fit together, how the data will flow, what will be the data structure in my database. Am I going to use even a database or a relational database or a NoSQL database? All those decisions are made by the architect.
Okay.
And based on those decisions, the architect also helps in estimating the amount of days it will take to complete that software project. Generally, the software projects are big projects. They take anywhere from 2 months to up to a year. I'm talking in general terms. There may be projects that are on the lower spectrum or even at the higher spectrum, but generally 2 months to 12 months is the general expectation. So of course, for such a large project, when such large teams are involved, like 50s or hundreds of people are involved in such projects, it is very important to ensure that the estimation is done. We have accountability from day one. If, for example, by the second month, this feature was expected to be released and it has not been done yet, then what were the gaps? So if we do not have the estimation in the first place, then it will be very difficult to identify that. And then people start moving on a treadmill like fashion. They are just walking and walking but never reaching anywhere. So a software architect tries to break that problem and ensures that that does not happen, right?
Okay. That's a lot of work that a software architect does, from business requirement analysis to the tech part of it, and then probably even motivating people to work or creating ecosystem for people to continue working. So, Anurag, you spent so many years in the tech field. I think, from my estimation, it's more than 16 years. Since before we began college, you've been deeply involved in tech. What is, in your opinion, do you think about the fact that can we use technology for good? Like, I mean, we obviously are using technology for good, but most of it is focused. The cutting edge technology is always focused with big corporate structures, or user or consumer based apps or the military, right? But we're not really using technology for social good in a very big way as we can. Do you think we will be able to democratize information using technology in the future? Do you think we can do that?
Well, absolutely. That is a fantastic question to ask, and I think there's a general consensus that technology has helped in digitization in a way that was never imagined before. So the paperwork of early 90s, 1900s, or even the late 1800s, that has almost disappeared. So we all, now work on computers. Classrooms are evolving. Students are no longer taking notes on their actual physical notebooks. They bring along iPads or their laptops whenever they can. Not that I'm encouraging that. I'm an old school guy who still believes in taking notes on physical copies, but that's happening. So a lot of the academies or a lot of the colleges are promoting that. So technology for good is a big topic that a lot of the IT companies are exploring, especially the ones that are heavily invested in research. And fortunately, I had the fortune to be working at one of those companies. So Accenture I worked at Accenture as a software architect as well, and as a researcher. So they have their little known division just dedicated to research, software research. It is called Accenture Labs. So at Labs, we did a lot of technology for good projects. In fact, I was a core part of that team. Before entering that division, before entering Labs, I had a very different opinion about technology for good. And once I started looking at the impact that all these initiatives were actually making on the ground, my reality was changed forever. So when I joined, there was a project that was ongoing to which I contributed a little bit also. It was for saving the girl child in India. So a lot of the economically weaker sections of the society in India today are unfortunately still have very high rates of crimes against women, especially against small children, right? So children anywhere between 10 to 18 years of age are highly susceptible. right from the beating that they get from their homes, from their fathers or their mothers. So especially the human trafficking part, where they are taken from one country or one place and sold to the other. Highly unfortunate. So unfortunate that it pretty much like rends your heart whenever you hear of such stories. So unfortunate. So one of the initiatives at Accenture Labs was working in this direction. So there was an organization, an NGO, already working on ground in West Bengal. So West Bengal has a lot of such cases on a year-to-year basis, and they were working to protect the girl child since a very long time. So it's a very old organization. It's called CINI. So CINI had been doing a lot of these initiatives to protect the girl children, and the way they did that was by manually sending their field workers into villages and taking some surveys. Those surveys would then come back and they would crunch the data to ensure, to find out what children were susceptible to what crimes based on the past trends. So when they approached us with this task of automating that. And like all social problems, this was a very complicated problem to tackle because number crunching is one thing, but then predicting something in advance is another. So the idea was to crunch the data and predict 6 months in advance whether child A or child B was susceptible to a particular crime. So that was the initiative that we took and we delivered, and it did make an impact. So there's a case study online where CINI and Accenture came together to solve this problem. We did a lot of such initiatives, especially in the education space, in the financial, microfinance space, to work with people on the ground to ensure that people who cannot access technology the way we, all of us, the rest of us do, are not deprived of all those benefits that everyone just takes for granted. So technology for good is, I think, not just something that should be done because it is the right thing to do. It is also something that generates revenues, right? So this chain of economy where the NGO is involved with a tech company, and a tech company in turn outsources some of its parts to, for example, a startup, a promising startup in India. So that chain establishes a new economy. That's what I believe. Even though the IT companies are somewhat doing these initiatives on a pro bono basis, but still a lot of this is economically viable, and we have done some projects to prove that. So technology for good is already there. To answer your question, TLDR, it's already there. People are doing it. There's no doubt that technology for good is a success. It's just a matter of more people realizing that technology for good is a viable idea that will not only impact their lives in a way that they will feel good about it, but also if they're looking for work, if they're looking for money, that's there for them.
Okay, that's a great answer. I'm going to use this particular point to talk about something slightly different. We are stuck in a lockdown. It's an extraordinary time for everyone on the globe, and people don't have a lot of access to anything else apart from technology. Like you have your mobile phones and laptops and Wi-Fi. Can we use technology for doing some good for people over there? I mean, already there are so many apps for COVID-related information. But apart from that, about their lifestyle, work from home, do you have any ideas or how people can use that?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of these new generation of ideas are cropping up today because of this unprecedented situation. A lot of the companies that were not able to work remotely for whatever reasons, infrastructure reasons or security reasons, now we have companies like Zoom and MS Teams and Skype and Slack all seeing a very heavy adoption because they enable these companies to work remotely. connect remotely in a way that was not never even imagined, in a scalable way, in a way that where a lot of people from your team can participate in the same way how it used to work in a physical setting. Apart from this idea where people are solving the remote working problem, I think a lot of ideas are cropping up to entertain people who are sitting at home and want to do something that they can just do at home, right? They do not have anywhere to go, so they do not have anything to explore, any place to explore. So what do they do with their life? A lot of new apps are coming and tackling those problems. So one such idea that I'm also working on is to help people make food at home. So there are
Wait.
plenty of
No,
options.
let me just get that. You are helping people make food from your home. How?
Um, so people from their homes,
Okay.
everyone's respective home. Yeah, sorry about the confusion. Um,
I mean,
so
probably that
basically,
is why you're so busy with your IT work, because you're helping everyone.
that's true. That's very true. So the idea is that although there are plenty of resources online where you can go and just search for whatever food that you want to cook tonight or today morning. You have plenty of those recipe websites, YouTube, and stuff like that. But there is no one platform that where you will enter the where you can tell the platform, okay, I have these many ingredients and these ingredients in my home. I have 1 kg potatoes, I have like onions, I have cottage cheese. Now what do I do of that, right? I have these lying around in my fridge. What can I make out of that? Now this question is especially important to the bachelors of the IT world and beyond, because those are the ones who are heavily impacted in these corona times, because they are the ones who are not at home, not in the comfort of their moms and dads, and they are the ones at a very big disadvantage. So what to do with the stuff that you have at home, right? So what to do with that? So this application, when you feed in all that data about your ingredients, it will suggest you some recipes that you can make out of them. And not only that, there's a social element to it also, so that people who are distanced in these tough times can come together. So if I've made a recipe, I can share with my friends with my chest bursting out that, okay, this is the thing that I've created today, this is how it looks like. Now I challenge you to make the same thing, right? Something on those lines. So people, when there's an element of community, I think people enjoy that. I think people feel more connected, and I believe there is nothing in human history that is more connecting than food, right? So I think that's one idea in that direction, and I'm sure there are so many other ideas out there that people are trying to solve problems for these tough times.
So
One such
this
idea.
idea, let me just summarize this idea. It is basically an automatic recipe generator based on the amount of ingredients you have or the type of ingredients you have, right?
Correct.
Wow. All college students, well, your life is going to become easier now.
I'm hoping so.
So, any other such ideas which you think are people across the world are doing, or which can help people during COVID-19 times?
So one other such idea is related to panic buying. So in UK there was a big problem of panic buying. So all of a sudden, when it was announced that there's going to be lockdown, people just flooded to the market, supermarkets, picked up whatever they could, whether they needed it or not, they just picked it up anyway. And as a result, what happened was a lot of people were left deprived of those things, those essential things that they wanted to pick from the market. So markets were out of bread, markets were out of eggs, markets were out of butter, all these essential things. So there was a startup that created a classified sort of application What it does is that if I have some extra food lying around or extra anything lying around in my home that I think would be better for another person in need, I can just put it up on the app with some pictures and advertise it in my neighborhood, so in my immediate vicinity. So anyone, and I can define the radius that okay, I want it advertised in, let's say, 2 kilometer radius. Then anyone else using that same app in 1 kilometer radius, if they come across that advertisement, or if they're looking for something, for example, I have a lot of cheese lying around that I don't need, and it's going to go waste in just a couple of days. It's better that I give it to someone else. So someone who is actually looking for cheese can search the application and find that person sitting in that 1 kilometer radius, contact them, have a phone conversation. The giver would then neatly package the stuff and put it on the doorstep, and the other person would just come and pick it up at a scheduled time. So this is how it works, and it's a fantastic idea. And I think it is also based on the same idea of community that I was talking about earlier. So I think the whatever ideas, that new ideas that are coming in these times, the ones that care about community or care about building maintaining a community in these tough times will succeed. And that's what people are really craving for, more than being able to go to office, or more than being in US or Europe or Spain or Australia. I think the biggest craving that people have is each other, right? And if something solves that problem, I think that is what will be a good success story.
I think Zoom is already solving that problem, and also we have our own Indian app now. It's called Say Namaste. I hope it becomes successful once they're done with their beta testing. So thank you so much for that, Anurag. That's really helpful. Now I'm going to switch over to a little bit about you as well. So you started working in all these big IT companies, and then after 7-8 years, you decided to join a startup, Offsam. So what is Offsam all about? How did you make the decision? And you were in the US for that, right? So how was the experience in US?
So after working for so long in the IT companies, I thought that I was not doing enough for the society, and I was not doing anything different anyway. So for myself, I was not doing different. For the society, I was not doing enough. So I met this person who came from US. He's basically an Indian who has been in US since more than 20 years now. So he came up with this idea. It was his idea to start a boot camp wherein we can enroll people directly from the colleges who are finding it very difficult to find jobs, especially the people in IT companies, or graduating from IT related fields like computer science or information technology. So those were the people. So the statistics, at least from 2014, were on the lines of there were like 10 lakh people or 1 million people graduating from engineering colleges every year, and only 20% of them were finding jobs. When I came across that figure, I was like astounded. I felt extremely lucky to be one of those people working in an IT company, let alone doing a wonderful job or not. So that really stirred in me a sense of doing something for the society, right? And I was always passionate about teaching. So this idea then started to take shape, wherein we would start a boot camp. It would be a rigorous program of all the IT skills these IT companies are looking for. And then we would train these people graduating from colleges that do not have those skills, or do not have it at the level that these big IT companies are expecting at. And then we would partner with those IT companies and supply them those people. So in a way, not only making an impact in the lives of students, but also changing the way the IT companies recruit. Because rather than getting a plain resource, as these companies call them, they would be getting a trained person that would be on the same lines or on par with the abilities of a person with 2 years of experience. So that was the idea. The bootcamp was supposed to be that rigorous, and it was. So we did a couple prototypes in India. Although India is a tougher market to crack, and we faced a lot of challenges, but that's a story for some other time. When we did that in US, to my surprise, and that was not the surprise of my partner because he already knew the situation in US. To my surprise, a lot of people in US were not working, and this holds true today also. A lot of them are not working in the fields that they have graduated from or that they always wanted to do. So, for example, a lot of IT engineers, they are probably working at Walmart's or McDonald's or all those companies that they never wanted to work at just to earn money, just to make their ends meet. The average household income of United States, I think, is between $50,000 to $60,000 per year, and that is the starting package of an IT engineer in US. That is starting package, right? And after like 4 or 5 years, you are easily making something on the lines of $80,000 to $90,000. So our bootcamp was a success there because a lot of these people that we invited, we went to colleges, universities, and we found these people who were not able to find jobs since more than 1 year or 2 years of graduation, and they came to us, and we together did this, learned together, did all the real world assignments, and they then went in their respective company. They fit in their respective company that starting packagings of like $80,000 or $70,000. That was great. I think when we have more people who can take technology, use technology to solve social and technological problems. Yeah. So that's what I think. Technology, is much bigger catalyst in India than it is in other countries, and we can take that one step.
That's great. That's actually very, very relevant in today's time. And taking a cue from that, technology is a very big catalyst in India as compared to, let's say, more developed nations. Do you think that Indians who are working in the tech sector, not only in IT but other tech sectors as well, do you think they have a passion for using technology for good in general, or do you think it's just another job for them to get to the next level in life? Do you think there are Indians who are really passionate and want to do something about it?
Oh, certainly I do. So, as apart from the work that I do at my 9 to 5 job, I am generally involved in a few meetups and a few communities that I feel very connected with, a lot of like-minded people. So whenever I have or helped organize these meetups, the very first thing that I've seen is that people show up. Mm-hmm. And that only goes to tell that even on a weekend, even on a Saturday, Sunday, that when people would better be doing something to make their lives richer in terms of entertainment, they take the pains to come visit a meetup, meet other like-minded people, and probably learn from them, from the sessions or from their the live workshops, from webinars or those things. And not only that, whenever we have asked for volunteership for whatever initiatives that we were planning, I've seen people very much willing to participate. So there's this hunger in the new generation of Indians that are graduating from colleges. Now that they have all the knowledge that they wanted and probably beyond that, now they have this hunger to do something with the knowledge. And many a times, and in fact most of the times, when you go work at some, even a big shot product company or a big MNC IT company, you do not get the opportunity to utilize all the knowledge that you have learned so far. And more often than not, the things that you are passionate about is not something that aligns with the business needs or the values of the company, right? So in that sense, they are always eager to participate in other initiatives where they can make utilize where they can utilize those skills. So in the last meetup that I did, I found that there were a bunch of guys who wanted to utilize their IoT skills that they learned in college to do some to build something that was practical and meaningful for the society. And they were not very interested in commercializing or anything like that. They just wanted to try their hands and make them more proficient at that technology, and in a way do something for the community or the society as well. So the least bit that we could do was to connect them with other folks in the our community who were professionals in that field. So I and my partner, my community partner, also knew a person who owns a startup in IoT, and that person has like more than 15-20 years of experience working with electronics and the stuff that makes IoT basically, right? So they discussed, brainstormed, and now they have created a small prototype robot of sorts that can do amazing things that these very high-end robots can do. For example, deliver food from one place to another and stuff like that, right? So they're experimenting. So I'm pretty sure there are so many other folks out there that are craving to utilize the skills that they've learned in college, or even before that, or even along with their work lives, and they want to do something good for the society.
I think you're absolutely right about that. In 2017, I started working with one of my friends from my first IT job, and we were really desperate to do something with tech. And IoT and smart systems were, really new and trending in the market that time. So we decided to create a couple of products. One was related to these big apartment building complexes that we have in India. They all have piped gas lines, right? Piped cooking gas lines. So they all have meters attached to each of the. In each apartment, you have meters which see how much gas you've consumed. What we decided to do was, let's say there is something wrong with the gas line. So we try to create a sensor-based system where if the gas is leaking somehow, then that sensor kind of understands it and sends a message to your phone, right? So that was the system we were creating. Then another system we were working on was a GPS-enabled identity card for kids of primary schools. In those days, there was a huge news running around in Delhi, NCR, where small kids they were getting lost basically, and the schools could not account for them, the parents could not account for them. So I know it borders on privacy and tracking people, but for primary students, we thought it is going to be a useful thing. We were going to use a Raspberry Pi system to create a local network, not rely on telecom systems run by Vodafone and all these people. But what happened was, so the embedded guy, the embedded systems person, the person who works with electronics, he has experience in working with Samsung and Toshiba. He came on board, and for 1 week, 10 days, we did our brainstorming and everything. But then later he declined to work for the sole reason that his wife said, you cannot spend more time working on technology after office hours.
That's funny.
So, do you think that's a big problem? One of the big problems why a lot of people in India, even though they want to work with tech and create more products for the general good, they're not able to do so because the family sees it in a very different way.
But I think that is true for all cultures and around the world, right? If you have a spouse, or even if you do not have a spouse, you're living with a family, an extended family or not, the expectation would always be to spend some quality time with your nears and dears, and that is very true. So I think ultimately it's about creating a balance and prioritizing things, right? So more often than not, we all have big ideas, we feel adventurous, and we just want to do everything in one night. But we just have to realize that's not possible and prioritize accordingly, right?
So, Anurag, do you think there is a platform or there is a place apart from meetups and all the other informal gatherings of people that people from across the country can come together contribute a little to doing some projects, maybe for society for good, or create new ventures and stuff like that?
Saurav, I think there is big potential for such a platform. We talked about technology for good earlier. We also talked about the craving of people who are smart, who are up and coming from colleges, who want to utilize their skills. If there were a platform where one could visit that platform and be able to contribute, uh, so visit that platform, look for projects where they could contribute, utilize their skills, and be able to do so remotely from the comfort of their homes. I think that platform would be a big godsend, and we could all benefit from having that platform. Not only it will make a community of big community of like-minded people. I'm pretty confident there are so many Indians who would want to try their hands on that. Having said that, not only community, there are so many challenging problems our society must solve in order to advance.
Okay.
And those cannot be done by one person or two persons. It has to be a community effort. And such a community effort cannot be formed in silos. So if people are just working on their own islands, they're probably solving some small problems. But the main thing is, how do you integrate all those small problems and solve the bigger challenge? So that is where this platform can really help by centralizing all the projects that people can take up, and by defining some guidelines or by making it fun for all these people also, because after some time people lose motivation because it is just maybe too much work, or maybe they are not getting enough recognition, or maybe because of their family pressures they step back, as you talked about, right? So I think if we can have that platform where it's fun, where it's everything is organized, everything is run just like a professional organization, and where we are solving very practical, very meaningful problems that have wide-ranging impact not only in India but also across the globe. I think such a platform will be very beneficial to people at this time and age, especially in this time and age, because it's one thing to go and meet people in one location, but the bigger thing, the bigger problem to solve right now is to enable such a platform so that people can remotely contribute in a way that is, also motivating for them. So we are talking about something like how these completely remote companies work. So companies like the parent of WordPress, it's called Automatic, or GitLab, or Auth0. These are some of the companies that totally work remotely and are big names in the startup communities. They have like big fundings, like multi-million dollar fundings, and Automatic is making millions. I think close to $1 billion revenue, so just by completely working remotely. So I think this platform will also need to operate in such a way where working remotely is not an afterthought or a secondary option. It is the primary option. It is, or probably the only option. So I think such a platform would really disrupt the tech for good industry, as we talk about.
That's great. So what are you doing now, Anurag? I mean, what are you involved in apart from your tech architect work, which is very consuming, obviously? Anything? How are you taking your passions forward?
Sure. So I was one of those guys that I talked about earlier, who were always craving to do something for the society, or for their own sake, they were craving to just learn something new, right? So I was fortunate enough to be connected with people, folks like Saurabh Nanda, who were on, who had similar thoughts, wanted to do something for the society. And I'm just going to hint at an initiative that we are planning. We'll probably be able to disclose more details as and when it takes more shape. shape, and it will take a lot of community efforts to do that. But this is a platform very similar to the one that we were just discussing, where it's possible for people who are looking to do tech for good projects, and at the same time also grow as in their careers, right? Grow technologically or grow in their soft skills or whatever areas that they're targeting. So such a platform that does not just want to utilize the skills of the people, but also wants to give back to those people in terms of recognition, in terms of skills learned, in terms of having an impact in the society, right? So this platform, I think we have a name for that. It's called Universal Native. And Saurav, you can probably talk a little more sometime later. But Universal Native is something that we are hoping we'll start with one society in particular. So, for example, from India, there are so many societal problems that exist in India, especially from the standpoint of information. So the kind of digitization that has already happened in the Western world is yet to happen in India. There are so many things that are hidden in government lockers, and we just do not have access to them. Or probably there are some challenges that have already been solved, but the other people do not know about them. So there's a big need to ensure that information is democratized. Information is not sitting in a closet. The way the search engines made the internet the tool where you can just get to know anything. So sitting at home, I can search the entire internet for whatever work people have created, whatever projects they have worked on, what technologies they did, how they are coding. I can learn, coding from the internet. I can teach, I can learn, I can do whatever I want. So a similar sort of revolution has to happen on ground in countries, in cities, in states. And this revolution is not possible without community. And Universal Native is that one step in that direction, I guess. So that's about it.
Great. Anurag, would you like to explain a little bit more as to how this community will attract people and what kind of work will be involved in the sense, let's say I'm a developer and I use a particular technology to develop. So how can I contribute? Or let's say I'm a social media manager, right? Social media optimizer, a marketer. How can I contribute? How will this community look like?
Well, you pretty much defined how the community looked like, right? So I think as we discussed initially, a lot of the societal problems will be solved using technology, and the kind of people that you just mentioned are the ones that are always part of these teams, the technological teams that make the software happen. So I have a developer that can work on creating the software actually. If I have a tech architect who can design the systems, and if I have a social media person, it's a perfect combination of success, right? So this team, however little it is, if they're able to spend some time of their daily hours into creating this project, then, for example, the developer can ensure that the software is getting developed. The technology architect can ensure that things are moving as planned and as designed. And if there are issues or technological challenges that the developers need to ask, then that person is always there for them. And the social media manager will be there to make sure that the software is adequately promoted. And when I say promoted, I believe that you will agree with me that promotion is probably the most difficult part of any software project. Right? I think by learning from online courses, anyone can make a product or a software, but it's really hard to promote it, right? So a social media manager would know all the ins and outs and the pitfalls of any strategy. They would have worked with big companies, or not, if not big companies, maybe with startups where the need for promotion is even more pronounced, and know how to deal with how psychology of people works, and how they can leverage that psychology to ensure that how they promote has an impact. So I think what you just mentioned is a perfect combination of success.
Great. Thank you so much, Anurag, for this wonderful interview. Thank you so much for taking your time on a Sunday and helping us understand more. So, as always, Anurag, as I've said in my introduction as well, Anurag is one of those people who makes the best analogies when it comes to explaining technology. He simplifies things a lot so that everyone can contribute and understand what we're talking about. So, thank you so much, Anurag.
The pleasure is mine, Saurabh. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really glad we had this conversation. And I believe that a lot of people who are thinking on similar terms will probably be convinced that there's a big need to have such a platform where we can get together and create something. Yeah.
Absolutely. So he just said what I was going to say in my conclusion. We're going to talk more about Universal Native in our future interviews as well, and we'll share more and more information about what we're trying to build here. Thank you so much for listening and visiting. Please provide a lot of feedback to us so that we can improve the content on our channel and all the small little details that we still need to work on. We're very new at this. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.